The story of the Khmer people begins long before the world learned to write names on maps, before the towers of Angkor touched the sky, before kings carved their faces into stone, and even before Cambodia had borders. There were the Khmer. They lived on a land blessed by rivers, forests, and the fertile heart of mainland Southeast Asia. This is a story of greatness, survival, and incredible resilience. Our journey starts in a time of deep antiquity. Archaeological discoveries, especially in a place called Long Speen Cave, show us that humans lived on Cambodian soil as far back as 70,000 years ago. These very first ancestors were skilled hunters and gatherers, masters of their environment. Over thousands of years, they didn't just survive, they innovated. They learned to cultivate rice, transforming the landscape. They crafted beautiful pottery, forged tools from metal, and slowly built the foundations of a society. As ancient trade routes began to connect the world, merchants from India arrived, not just with goods, but with powerful new ideas. They brought scripts for writing, profound religious philosophies, new models for organizing a kingdom, and stunning artistic symbols. But the Khmer people were never just passive recipients. They took these influences, blended them with their own unique culture, and transformed them into something entirely new, something unmistakably Khmer. This creative fusion was the spark that would eventually ignite one of the world's most magnificent civilizations. From these ancient roots, the first kingdoms began to rise. The earliest we know of are Funan, and later, Chenla. Funan emerged around the 1st century, centered near the fertile Mekong Delta. It wasn't a landlocked kingdom, but a powerful maritime empire. Its ships sailed the seas, making it a crucial trade hub, linking the giants of India and China. The people of Funan were brilliant engineers and administrators, developing sophisticated irrigation to control the life-giving waters of the Mekong, and establishing early forms of government and commerce that made them incredibly wealthy and influential. Around the 6th century, the center of power shifted. A new kingdom, Chenla, inherited Funan's legacy, but expanded its focus inland, deeper into the heart of Cambodia. Chenla was so vast, it was often described in 2 parts: land Chenla in the north, and water Chenla in the south, which encompassed much of Funan's old territory. The rulers of Chenla were devout temple builders, dotting the landscape with stone sanctuaries dedicated to their gods. They expanded agriculture, harnessed the land's resources, and set the stage for the most spectacular era in all of Khmer history. They were laying the groundwork for an empire that would soon astonish the world. That moment arrived in the year 802. On the sacred slopes of Mahendra Parva, a mountain now known as Phnom Kulen, a visionary prince named Jayavarman II performed a sacred ritual. He declared himself the Devaraja, the God King, a universal monarch whose power was divine. This single act unified the land and marked the birth of the Khmer Empire, also known as the Angkor Empire. For the next 6 centuries, this civilization would dominate Southeast Asia, leaving behind achievements that continue to capture our imagination today. At the heart of this empire was its capital, Angkor. This wasn't just a city, it was a sprawling urban complex, a hydraulic marvel, and a spiritual universe rendered in stone. The achievements here are simply staggering. Think of Angkor Wat, the world's largest religious monument, a perfect fusion of spiritual devotion and architectural genius. Its towers representing the peaks of Mount Meru, the center of the Hindu cosmos. Then there's the Bayon Temple, with its hundreds of serene, smiling stone faces, a mysterious and deeply moving masterpiece. And who could forget Ta Prohm, the temple famously embraced by the jungle, where giant tree roots snake over ancient galleries, reminding us of the eternal dance between human creation and the power of nature. But the empire's genius wasn't just in its temples. The Khmer were masters of water engineering. They built a sophisticated hydraulic system of massive reservoirs, called beres, canals, and moats. This system wasn't just for show. It controlled the monsoon floods, irrigated vast rice fields, and sustained a population of nearly 1 million people in the capital alone. This advanced agriculture fed the empire and fueled its incredible growth. Under visionary kings like Suryavarman II, who built Angkor Wat, and the great Jayavarman VII, who built the Bayon, and an entire network of hospitals and roads. Angkor reached a level of glory that was unmatched anywhere in the world at the time, but no empire lasts forever. After centuries of unparalleled success, Angkor began to face serious challenges. The climate shifted, bringing periods of intense drought followed by destructive monsoons, which damaged the delicate water management system. Regional conflicts with neighboring states grew more frequent. There were internal political tensions and succession disputes that weakened the empire from within. And most significantly, the rising power of the Siamese kingdom of Ayutthaya to the west posed a constant threat. In 1431, after years of conflict, Ayutthayan forces sacked the grand capital of Angkor. This event didn't end Khmer civilization, but it marked the decline of its greatest city and the beginning of a new, more challenging era. After the fall of Angkor, the center of Khmer life shifted. The capital moved several times, eventually settling further southeast. Near the confluence of the great rivers, in the area of modern-day Phnom Penh. This post-Angkor period, stretching from the 15th to the 19th century, was a time of immense struggle. Cambodia found itself caught in a difficult position, squeezed between two powerful and expanding neighbors, Siam, now Thailand, to the west, and Vietnam to the east. The kingdom fought hard to maintain its independence, facing invasions and political pressure from both sides. Yet, through all these hardships, the Khmer people held on to the core of their identity. They preserved their beautiful language, their rich cultural traditions, and their deep devotion to Theravada Buddhism, which had become the state religion. Kings and courts worked tirelessly to maintain stability, navigating the treacherous waters of regional power politics while keeping the flame of Khmer culture alive. By the mid-19th century, the pressure became too great. Fearing that his kingdom would be completely absorbed by its neighbors, King Norodom made a fateful decision. In 1863, he signed a treaty with France, making Cambodia a French protectorate. For the next 90 years, Cambodia was part of French Indochina. The French introduced many changes. They built new administrative systems, paved modern roads, and established schools based on a European model. French architects created a new urban plan for Phnom Penh, giving it the grand boulevards that would earn it the nickname the Pearl of Asia. And crucially, French archaeologists began the painstaking work of clearing the jungle from the temples of Angkor, revealing their forgotten splendor to the world. But French rule also meant a loss of sovereignty, and the spirit of independence never faded. This spirit was championed by King Norodom Sihanouk, who, through brilliant political maneuvering, achieved full independence for Cambodia peacefully in 1953. The years that followed independence, from 1953 to 1970, are often remembered as a golden era. It was a time of incredible cultural renaissance. Cambodian music, with its unique blend of traditional sounds and Western rock and roll, was heard everywhere. The nation's film industry was one of the most vibrant in the region. Arts, dance, architecture, and education all flourished. Phnom Penh was a cosmopolitan, dynamic, and beautiful city. It seemed like Cambodia was finally master of its own destiny, with a bright future ahead. The Khmer identity, proud and creative, shone brightly during these vibrant years. But this golden age was tragically cut short. In 1970, while King Sihanouk was abroad, a coup led by General Lon Nol plunged the country into civil war, dragging Cambodia into the wider conflict raging in Vietnam. After 5 years of brutal fighting, on April 17, 1975, the radical communist forces of the Khmer Rouge marched into Phnom Penh, led by Pol Pot. The regime launched a horrific social experiment to create an agrarian utopia. They emptied the cities, abolished money, religion, and education, and forced the entire population into labor camps. It was a descent into darkness. Over the next 4 years, nearly 2 million Cambodians, a quarter of the population, died from forced labor, starvation, disease, and execution. It was one of the worst genocides of the 20th century. This nightmare finally ended in January 1979, when Vietnamese forces intervened and drove the Khmer Rouge from power. The road back from such a devastating tragedy was long and incredibly difficult. From 1979 into the early 1990s, Cambodia began the painful task of healing and rebuilding. While the Khmer Rouge continued to fight a guerrilla war in the countryside, life slowly began to return to normal in the rest of the country. Families were reunited, schools reopened, and markets came back to life. The international community stepped in to help. In 1991, the warring factions signed the Paris Peace Agreements, officially ending the conflict. 2 years later, in 1993, the United Nations oversaw the country's first democratic elections. The monarchy was restored with King Norodom Sihanouk returning as the head of state, providing a symbol of unity and continuity for a nation desperate to rebuild itself. Today, Cambodia is a nation transformed. Since the 1990s, the country has experienced rapid growth and development. New infrastructure, like roads and bridges, connects the country like never before. The agricultural sector continues to be the backbone of the economy, while education and healthcare are steadily improving. The arts are once again flourishing, as a new generation of Cambodians rediscovers and reinvents their cultural heritage. Phnom Penh is a bustling capital, its skyline rising with new buildings, a symbol of the country's economic ambitions. And in Siem Reap, millions of visitors from around the globe come to marvel at the timeless beauty of Angkor, the enduring heart of Khmer identity. The Khmer spirit, shaped by the glory of an ancient empire and tempered by the pain of a tragic past, remains bright, resilient, and full of hope for the future. The history of the Khmer people is a powerful journey of greatness, loss, survival, and rebirth. From their prehistoric ancestors to the breathtaking heights of Angkor, from the struggles of colonial rule to the joy of independence, and from the darkest depths of tragedy to a determined renewal, the people of Cambodia continue to write their own future with an unshakable spirit. Thank you so much for joining us on this incredible journey through Cambodian history. If you found this story as fascinating as we do, please hit that like button and subscribe for more stories from our amazing world. See you next time.